This guy can steal skills by touching his target. He can become a necromancer, a fire-breathing dragon, heal automatically like Treant Protector from Dota 2, enhance his body like a hobgoblin, run like the Flash, and much more. But before I spoil the fun, let's start the story. Somewhere in the forest, a monster called Walamkadi attacked the two. Mason suddenly screamed to get its attention and save his party members. However, he lost balance to the slippery hound, and when he tried to get up, it was too late for him to run. Luckily, a guy named Rondo caught the monster by the neck with his sword. In one slash, Mason was amazed at how powerful that blow was. While the two others commended and thanked Rondo for saving them, he suddenly looked at Mason and told him to leave their party. Mason dropped his jaw, speechless. The two said it was too harsh, but Rondo stuck to his words, wanting to expel Mason from their party. He suddenly stopped with a killing intent lingering from him and said he could hurt someone if they were this incompetent. In Landorus's guild branch called Caulifla, the manager, Guile, and receptionist Slim greeted Mason as he came in. When they talked a little, and he mentioned processing the leave to his party, Guile asked what happened and told them what truly happened between him and Rondo. When Mason wondered if he got kicked out because he didn't tell his party about his skills, Guile bonked his head for not telling them. Mason explained rumors might spread if they knew about his rare skill, which only demons were known to have, but the manager scolded him for hiding things from his friends and not trusting them. He was given F-ranked quests for now, and it was goblin extermination. Goblins had no skills, but he is nervous about fighting these horde of ugly morons alone. Knowing he had no chance of winning if he fought these disgusting babies in diapers head-on, he planned on using his skill. While the goblins chased him, he noticed some goblins who used strengthening skills nearby. When it attacked him, he faced it and reached his arms out to steal the opponent's skills. The monster shrank in a blink, looking like an old monk who lived for hundreds of years. A marking emerged from the back of his palm. He summoned his sword from his item storage and faced the rest of the goblins. In one blow, he defeated them. He picked up their ears as proof of accomplishing the quest. He felt lonely as he did this and wondered what would happen if he were more honest with them. A flock of birds suddenly rushed away, and he noticed an elf tribe running away from an angry tree. He wondered why a torrent, who was supposed to be peace-loving, attacked them. He stepped in to block the torrent's branch. He asked the elves what happened, and they said it suddenly attacked them, and their attacks weren't working with its quick regeneration. He thought stealing its power would be nice, so when he caught the torrent's branch off guard, he plundered it. However, he got slapped in the face after he slashed its arms. When the torrent realized it couldn't regenerate anymore, it returned to the forest. Mason activated the natural recovery skill on his wound, while the elves thanked him for helping them. They rained him with questions on why the torrent suddenly couldn't recover, making him nervous. He tried convincing them that the tree might have felt he did illegal logging and ran scared. A woman scolded the elves for bombarding the person who helped with questions instead of thanking him. The elves apologized and thanked him. She moved to him to thank him, so he grabbed her hand to tell them to be careful next time. While the elves got overly protective of her for holding her hand, she was flustered. Luna was daydreaming and jolted when they called her name. She asked for his name, so Mason introduced himself. Luna said her name and was about to say something when the elves stopped her. They all thanked him again before leaving, and as they left, he wondered if they all lived in Landoria as well. He opened his storage to check his items, and after defeating more monsters as he headed back, he wondered if the loot he got was enough for the guild to recognize him as an adventurer. He arrived at the reception hall and talked to Slim behind the desk. Mason looked worn out, making her worry. She assumed he failed because of his appearance and had an empty hand. But when Mason opened his storage and placed the items, she was surprised. She inspected it for a bit and went to get something. As he waited for his pay, he wondered if he could get enough money to stay for 3 nights, and when Slim returned, he gasped upon seeing the money. He tried returning it because it was too much, but Slim explained it was a fair price for the items. Guile noticed the commotion, so she approached Mason to congratulate him on his first solo quest. She informed him about raising his rank to D because of his output today. She rained him with commendations and said his rewards increased, and the range of quests also expanded. Mason was relieved because he wouldn't be homeless for 3 months. Suddenly, the manager asked if he could go to the royal capital. He was confused about what he needed to do there, but the manager also didn't know why he was being called there. Mason was worried, thinking about what he had done wrong earlier. Guile asked him to go there because it was a request from the capital. He suddenly thought maybe the king would ask him to carry his luggage like the last time. He was so excited as he went to bed inside Infips. He stared at the skills written on his fingers and sighed when he remembered he wasn't in the hero party anymore. He tried to sleep, but all he saw were his previous party's faces. He had been dreaming of defeating the Demon King with them. He enjoyed fighting alongside them, but had to move on and make new friends. The next day, he went to the main gate of the royal palace. A guard noticed him and greeted him because it had been a while since they met. He greeted him back, and when the guard asked if he had been expelled from the party, he asked how he knew it. The guard said Rondo had come there earlier. Rondo was surprised when the guard asked where Mason was because his name was listed. He explained that he kicked him out of their party. The guard told him not to worry because he could still be a luggage carrier, but Mason had decided not to do that job anymore. He went inside to see what he was called for, and he was mesmerized by the beauty and extravagance of the palace. A familiar voice called him, and it was Rondo. He was asked why he went there with a piercing gaze, so he nervously said he also didn't know why he was called. Rondo started mocking and belittling him, but a hand grabbed his arm when he grabbed Mason's collar. The man said he wouldn't allow any quarrel within the palace grounds. He looked at Mason and figured out he was the man he was looking for. Mason followed him to a room, and when he was introduced to the king, Sadely Wise Arkles introduced himself. The king looked at him and told him his daughter was the one who wanted to see him. He was dumbfounded, but he was surprised when Luna came out asking if he remembered her. The king had heard Mason help the king's daughter, so he allowed them to meet. Luna, the first princess of their kingdom, smiled at Mason and said she would thank him for his help. He went silent when the princess suddenly asked him to form a party with her. He was speechless at the unexpected proposal. He thought for it for a moment, but the king spoke on behalf of both of them. He suggested they accept a quest together to get to know each other's capabilities. He wanted the two to be comfortable when they formed their party. They went outside, with the king telling them he used to be at a party and enjoyed learning through quests. Luna was surprised because that was news to her. He told them to cherish and hold on to the future they dreamt of. He added that his daughter was stronger than Mason thinks. When he asked them if they would agree on deciding after they get to know each other through a quest, the two gladly accepted it. After the meeting with the king, he went to the guild with the princess. The manager gasped in shock at the news that they would go on a quest to form a party. Guile told them about the new quest called Graveyard Exorcism. Strange noises had come from the graveyard at night, and they must investigate what was causing it. The princess and Mason agreed to accept it, so the manager started processing it and told them to be careful. Mason somehow felt strange about this quest, but they found no monsters nearby when they got there. Luna was about to feel sad because the first quest was a flop when a lizard came out, making her scream and hug Mason. He kept squealing and saying she wanted to go home, so Mason snapped her out of it. She was shaking in fear, making him worry, and said she looked like a different person from earlier. He walked around and spotted a hole in a grave nearby. She was getting chills from it and worried about whether a monster had done this. Mason opened it and figured someone had dug it out. When he felt someone behind them, he drew his sword and told Luna to step back. The skeleton was slow for him, so he easily defeated it with no resistance. He was confused for a moment, but when he realized it was a necromancer, he tried to find the person who was controlling it. He spotted the lich who resurrected these skeletons, but they still had to face the problem before them. He tried firing fireballs at them, but it wasn't enough to burn the bones to ashes. Before he could activate the physical boost, the skeletons surrounded him, and he could get crushed. However, the princess stepped in and lifted her arms to shine brightly while Mason bit his lips in frustration. The light from her blow made the skeletons shriek in pain, and they all vanished. They were huffing for air when Luna told him to take out the lich now. Mason nodded and sprinted to the monster. The lich was caught off guard and activated his skill on it. He finally stole the lich's ability to resurrect the dead, and when the monster realized she had no skill, she screamed. Before she could go berserk, Mason loaded his physical enhancement and infused fire element into it. He breathed in as he swung his sword back, and when he released the attack at the lich, it screamed until it got burned to death. They heard a creepy chuckle when the monster turned to dust under the moonlight. His eyes widened when he saw many hands about to grab his legs. Luna moved before him and released her power to purify the monster. The monster should shriek from the light and return to the hole in the grave. When it was gone, they huffed for air. They looked at each other and hugged with happiness. When they realized they were too close, they pulled away and apologized to each other for getting carried away. They just laughed it off afterward. Mason got curious about her skill, so she said it was a holy white light that could purify and weaken any demons. He was amazed because she was strong, just like her father's words. She asked what his skill was because she had seen him use many skills earlier. He paused to think. He realized he had to be honest this time, so he revealed his plunder skill that steals skills. He looked away, ready to get criticized, but he was shocked when Luna was amazed by it. He thanked her and asked what her goal was. I can't believe they're talking like they're in a cafe. Well, they seemed to not mind. The princess said his brother Lutz got captured by demons and barely kept himself safe with magic at the moment. Luna wanted to save him before the magic wore off. She asked if Mason could lend his strength to her and form a party with her. He was convinced and drawn to her goal, so he accepted it. After their talk, she suddenly asked whose blessing he had, but he pondered what it was. She sighed and explained that elves of royal blood receive blessings from their goddess, Titania, so she was curious about who blessed him with this unique skill. He couldn't speak immediately, maybe from embarrassment or doubt. He felt dizzy, making Luna worried, and when he heard a voice asking him if he remembered, he fell on the floor unconsciously. It had been a few minutes since he passed out. The princess kept waking him up, and when he woke up, she was relieved. Mason realized she was all alone when he was out, so he asked if she was all right. The two walked back to the guild, wondering what had happened to Mason. Guile couldn't believe a lich was there, and when Slim checked the staff, it was real. It was some of the lost treasures from 50,000 years ago called the Witch's Eye. Mason said they got it from the lich, which they couldn't rule out a connection to the demons, so the manager asked Slim to investigate. She thanked the two and apologized for the unforeseen situation. She asked if they would head to report to the king, and when they said yes, their stomachs started rumbling louder than the dragon's roar. They hadn't eaten anything, so they went out. As he asked what he wanted to eat, he froze, and when she traced where he was staring, the princess asked if he knew them. Shael and Miro spotted him and greeted him. The two rushed to him to ask how he was doing and that they were worried about him, but their brows raised when they noticed he was with a girl. Luna introduced herself to them nervously. The two told her to take care of their clumsy friend, but she couldn't believe Mason was that clumsy. Shael leaned closer because she found her face familiar. Luna started sweating and said it was only her imagination, and she somehow bought it and said she had a cute face. Shael said they were heading to go fishing, so they invited them. When Mason thought Luna was feeling awkward, she surprisingly agreed to come. The two introduced themselves to Luna, but despite seeing her smiling, Miro could feel that Luna was hostile but kept quiet about it. They arrived at a river nearby and went to find a nice spot. Shael asked for a fishing rod from Miro, so she took her staff out and said she didn't have enough mana to create a high-quality one. Luna stepped to get it, making Mason ask if she was good at fishing, and she said, "Yeah, a little." He was confused about why she looked so motivated, and it looked like the two realized Shyle and Luna would be fighting through fishing. When Miro commended the princess was terrific, he was shocked because he had already noticed. Miro was also amazed by how he got to form a party with her. While talking, he unconsciously used his fire skills before Miro. He winced and quickly stopped it. Miro smiled because he was glad his friend was doing well after all. Meanwhile, the two competitive minions were itching to get a fish, but they wouldn't even feel a twitch. Shyle got impatient and just stuck her hand through the water and grabbed a fish. She didn't even need a fishing rod for fishing. Luna wouldn't lose to her, so she made her line invisible. They waited for a few more minutes, and suddenly, they felt a force pulling their rod. Shyle was the first to pull the rod and catch a huge fish. She was smiling from ear to ear, and on the other side, the princess was shocked to see a long fish with multiple eyes on its body. She shrieked because it looked so scary. Mason looked at their catch and was amazed. Shyla and Luna commended themselves, making Miro and Mason wonder how they quickly got along. They wondered what they should do with the fish, and when they mentioned cooking it, Luna and Shyle gasped and thought this would be a cooking competition. The gentlemen were tasked to cut the fish. They seasoned it, and when Mason skewered and slowly grilled both sides, Luna drooled in hunger. Miro used his magic to draw out the mud and its strong smell. He also poured flour on the perfect slice of meat and found it on the pan. Shyle kept asking Miro when she could eat, but he brushed her off. The two continued bugging the cooks, so they got nagged. The crispy fried Landria catfish and sweet and spicy grilled seven gazer were all done when it was time to put the finishing touches. The two gasped because they couldn't believe that creepy fish turned into a delicious-looking food. When they took a bite, Shyle's eyes sparkled from the juiciness of the meat and the crunchiness of the skin. On the other side, Luna could cry from the fluffiness and addictiveness of the food. While eating, Mason was asked how they ended up forming a party. Luna told them about her brother, and she needed Mason's help. Shyle was surprised he lent a hand. The two said them good luck, and their conversation shifted to Rondo. Miro told him he seemed off lately, and they were worried that he might be up to no good. Mason was shocked, making Shyle tell Miro to stop scaring Mason. After a few moments, they rested. Luna walked to Mason to ask for a moment, and asked if they could stop using formal speech. He was confused, making her sigh, and said if he kept talking like that, others would notice that she is from the royal family. She firmly told him to just call her by her name, so Mason quickly nodded his head. But Luna ain't done. She told him to try calling her by her name, so he did repeatedly, and somehow, she looked really happy about it. When it was time to part ways, they bid goodbyes. Luna somehow felt she misunderstood when she heard Amison was exiled because those two were good people. He nodded and wondered when they would meet again. Little did they know, Rondo was passing by and saw them. The man beside him wondered where the hero was looking at and saw the two faces near the river. A few hours later, he faced a huge black wolf deep inside the forest. He blocked its attack and used his plunder skill, but he was still worrying about Rondo. Before this, they reported to the palace, and the king was crying in joy. As they were talking, Rondo called Mason as soon as he spotted him. He told him he was an eyesore to see he would run carefree around his new friend. Mason said they were at a party. Luna raised a brow as he realized he was Rondo, the hero the king acknowledged. Rondo asked what her goal was, and when she said to defeat the demon tribe, he scoffed, looked at her, and firmly said he would be the one to defeat the demon king. Rondo added that the two of them couldn't do anything to save others. Luna frowned and couldn't help but step in and ask why a hero was acting dumb. Rondo wondered who she was. She said someone who oppresses others doesn't deserve this hero title. Before he could recognize her, she bumped her head against his chin. Before they could argue further, a man named Leaf called Rondo. He looked at Mason, and it looked like he had heard a lot about him. Leaf and Rondo went off, and that encounter kept Mason wondering why he acted like that. Due to his occupied mind, the wolf managed to bite his arm. He activated his swift step skill to outrun them. He gave Luna a signal, so she raised her arms and blasted the wolves with her power. The wolves whimpered as they ran away. She noticed his wounds and tried to help him. Mason said he got the wound because he couldn't focus. She figured it must be the hero on his mind. They had been gathering intel about the demons, and they thought they should just fight the demons already. But Rondo's words got Mason so that they couldn't do it. Luna could sense if anything happened to Lutz, so she assured him that her brother was fine at the moment and said she was relying on his skills. For now, it's better to prepare strong abilities through skills and get to know each other more as a party. He thanked her and told her they should now head to the Red Wolf. After a few hours, they still hadn't seen the Red Wolf, and only regular wolves came to them. They tried looking around for more minutes and heard rustling behind a bush. They spotted a wolf nearby, and it was from before, so they chased after it. The wolf jumped inside a cave through the ground. They halted, and when they saw what was inside, Mason dropped his jaw when they saw a huge pack with a huge white wolf at the center. He panicked because he didn't know how the two of them would defeat this number of wolves. When they were spotted, the wolves howled and started merging into one. The wolves transformed into huge creatures. It tried stomping on them, but they quickly evaded. Mason used his plundering skills but couldn't steal anything from them. He had no choice but to fight, so he loaded a fireball and blasted it. However, it did no damage. The wolf growled and slashed its claws at him. He screamed in pain as he was thrown to the ground. Luna saw his wounds and worriedly asked him if he was all right. She cast a protection barrier around them, but it wouldn't last long with the monster's attacks. He paused for a moment to think, and when he thought of something, he slashed its arm, but it regenerated quickly. The two gritted their teeth in frustration. Mason got another idea, so he explained it to her. He took the first step and slashed the monster's arm and tail. When the severed parts turned into wolves, he gave Luna a signal to commence their plan. She quickly trapped the wolves inside the barrier so the huge wolf wouldn't regenerate. Now that its core was exposed, Mason leaped at the wolf and pierced the center. Every wolf under the pack was struck through their hearts, and in a blink, they shattered into bloody pieces. Mason commended her hard work, but she scolded him for moving too much because her mana was almost depleted. He told her he could manage with his auto-healing skill, but their conversation was interrupted when a voice asked for help. Despite his state, Mason followed the voice and noticed someone groaning behind a tree. A beast boy was seen with a terrible wound. Luna only gave him an emergency treatment since she was low on mana. The boy suddenly spoke, saying Chloe needed help. He kept asking them to save her, making them wonder what happened to them in the forest. They wrapped his thigh with a clean cloth and Mason carried him on his back on their way to a village. They spotted a stone gate built into the cliffside where the boy told them to go. The guard stopped them and asked them to state their names and businesses. The boy called Gold and Jude, the guards, with a smile. The two gasped to see Eck's condition, so they took the boy to bring him to the treehouse. The guard told them to get inside, and as they walked, he thanked them for saving Eck. He called everyone to come closer to show them the persons who saved Eck. Mason looked around the Beastkin village, and it was wonderful and peaceful. Their craftsmanship was incredible. The Beastkin approached them. The village chief, Ron Lori, greeted the travelers and thanked them for saving Eck and his family. He said they had been worried they would never see him again. The beast people bowed their heads as they thanked them, and when the people went to them, they asked them many questions. Mason and Luna started introducing themselves, but the chief told them to calm down. They were brought to a room to rest. Somehow, I thought it was Spider-Man sitting on her lap. Never mind. Why are we looking at someone's bazookas? Mason told the chief about how they found some wolves and saw Eck. He mentioned the insanely strong white creature that sent him flying. The chief was surprised and explained that what they fought was only a juvenile, a baby. The two were shocked to know that an adult red wolf's body burned with black and red flames, bigger and possessing an unthinkable strength. He sighed and said the red wolf attacked his daughter Chloe and hoped they could help them find and save Chloe. The two glanced at each other. They accepted the side quest, since they had already planned to take down the red wolf. The beast people helped and served them for their needs. After their wounds were patched up, Eck handed them something. He said it was a small gift that was blessed. They thanked him for the gift, but Eck was still scared about what he had gone through. He told them to be careful and return safely. They nodded and said they would find and save Chloe. As they were about to leave, Gold and Jude stopped them. Luna got worried and confused, but when they spoke and asked if they could come to help them, they understood. They couldn't let the travelers take the risks alone, so they wanted to lend their hands. They agreed, so they all bid goodbye to the village. As they walked to the forest, they talked about the attack of the red wolf before and how hardly anyone had survived. Mason wondered why Chloe had disappeared, so they said Chloe had saved Eck by becoming a decoy to give her little brother a chance to escape. After a long walk, Gold stopped them because his sense of smell detected something different. A howl echoed through the trees, so they looked around. Mason spotted a gigantic red and black body on a branch of a tree, glaring at them. When the red wolf released its deafening howl, they all groaned from the loudness of the sound, which made them feel like their head was about to split. 3 huge white wolves gathered before them when they opened their eyes. Mason and Luna planned to take the one down like last time, but she was worried about their number. The red wolf suddenly grabbed its child, which surprisingly didn't resist as their parents ate them up. Mason winced as he watched it. Gold was confused about it and wondered if the big one had kept the small fries to feed itself. If true, it would become stronger now that it had digested the wolves. The monster roared, sending shivers down their spines. The intensity was on a whole other level than anything they had faced. Mason was even thinking of running, but it would be too late. The monster was crawling toward them, so Gold grabbed his spear tightly and sprinted towards it. The red wolf halted, accumulating fire inside its mouth, and when it released the flames, Gold luckily dodged it in time. Jude told him not to move without thinking because they still didn't know what this monster could do. Mason asked them to observe for weak points and told Luma to try the same tactic they used on the young ones. He took the sword out of his item storage, wasting no time. He activated his swift step and body enhancement. Since his plunder wouldn't work on the young ones, it would probably fail on this one, so he did the only thing he could do for now. As he leaped above it, he thought the monster had a slow reaction, but he got fooled. The red wolf swung its arm, breaking his blade in half. He gasped in shock, but someone with a furry tail grabbed him away from the monster before he could move. When he was placed to the side, he got a look at the person and realized this woman was Chloe, Eck's older sister. He looked at her and noticed all the wounds she had. He was worried because she was completely battered, but she said the feeling was mutual. Gold and Jude gasped in surprise to see Chloe. She told them they must focus on the wolf for now because it was exceptionally strong and its magical energy was off the charts. She asked for their help on this, so they all nodded and moved together to distract the red wolf in different directions simultaneously. Chloe called the wolf's attention to her, so she quickly flipped her body to dodge its arm. She teased and told the wolf it was overeating and getting slower. When the wolf was pissed, maybe for being called a fatso, it released flames, so Luna summoned barriers. When Jude was about to get attacked, he called Luna to give her a signal, so she nodded and quickly summoned her magic through her palms. She blasted the holy light at the red wolf, temporarily blinding the monster. Chloe gets a chance to move closer, so she uses her Kitsune Slash skill and releases it to the monster's face. The monster froze. It couldn't believe an attack had landed on its body. The wolf's aura shifted and it began attacking everyone, going berserk. Mason's eyes widened as he saw the hand nearing him. He couldn't believe his body wouldn't move again. He was swallowed by fear and doubt, but luckily Chloe came to save him and deflected the attack. She even asked if he was all right, so he apologized and thanked her for helping him. Surprisingly, the wolf was sent flying back from her counterattack, surprising everyone. The wolf was getting up, and its armor hadn't cracked a bit. Despite that, Chloe moved forward with speed. Her heart was filled with eagerness, and when she leaped, she swung her arm back and slashed her claws at its face. The armor surrounding the red wolf's body cracked, so Chloe gave space to Mason. He ran forward to try using his plunder skill on the wolf again, but he got something incredible this time. He obtained its fire breath and body enhancement skills. His sword was broken, but he could still fight using the fire breath he got. He took a deep breath and released the massive flames out of his mouth. The wolf shrieked in pain. It was melting like butter, and he couldn't believe it could still move. The monster used its final strength to attack him, and Mason couldn't dodge it this time. Suddenly, light beamed out of the charm Ek gave, and it instantly dealt tremendous damage to the red wolf, resulting in its defeat. Now that it was finished, they all sighed in relief. Gold and Jude were glad their village would be in peace now. Mason was glad they got Chloe on their side. He looked at her and wondered why she was staring blankly. She mentioned the light before defeating the wolf, and she figured her brother really did manage to get back. They eventually went back to the village to announce what happened. The people were surprised to see Chloe back safely, and her little brother was the happiest person to see her back. After what they had been through, they were finally reunited. The villagers prepared a feast for the travelers to celebrate Chloe's return. The chief was so happy to meet incredible people who saved their family. After eating, Mason thanked Gold, Jude, Chloe, and Ek for helping them. Chloe suddenly asked why they were pursuing the red wolf, so they explained that it was their quest as a party, but the guild mistook the juvenile for the real thing and sent only the two of them. Ron Lori sighed and said the monsters were getting more aggressive recently, and he could feel something bad would happen soon. When he mentions the hero being seen going in and out of the forest, Mason wonders what Rondo is planning. He called Luna's attention, and they seemed to be thinking the same thing. She looked at Chloe and asked if she would like to join their party, because she truly believed they needed her strength. He didn't expect her to ask her immediately, but she said she saw no reason to refuse a request from their benefactors. She added that since Gold and Jude would be there in the village, they would be fine, and she wanted to uncover the truth about why some villagers vanished overnight. The chief was hesitant, but he also wished to know the truth. He added that she would be drawing far too near the shadows and asked if she truly possessed the fortitude for such a path. Chloe decided she couldn't remain in the dark to protect her loved ones. Mason honestly said they would anticipate the journey to be fraught with danger, so there was no telling what they might face. He asked them again if they would allow Chloe to join them, but Chloe herself was eager to find the truth. The chief knew she was set on this path, so she accepted her faith. Chloe introduced herself to Luna and Mason, and so did the two. Their party had gained another trustworthy comrade to fight for each other's goals. The officers of the Adventurers Guild heard about the troubles with the quests. Guile apologized and said it was her responsibility as the branch manager. She also mentioned she suspected some change in the ecosystem, and that some humans had something to do with it. The two men said they should investigate all personnel connected to the guild and suspend all acceptance of new quests. When the adventurers heard about the news, they were frustrated because it was their only source of income. The three were also surprised by the news. Chloe's registration paper for the party has not yet been completed. Suddenly, Miro and Shyle came after hearing the news. They greeted them and noticed they gained a new party member, so Chloe introduced herself. Shyle asked if Luna was alright, confusing her. Shyle figured she was clueless, so she informed her about the demon attack on the elven town of Velosam. Luna gasped and was about to storm out to head to the palace, but they calmed her down because it would be dangerous for her to be alone. Mason knew she was already worried about her brother, and now the demons were trampling her hometown. They went to the palace, and luckily, her father was safe. The king already dispatched mage soldiers to the town, but Masam insisted on going to Velosam. The king explained there were hundreds of demons there, but Mason knew the risks and said they also might find a clue to help Lutz. The king asked him why he was going to such lengths to help his son, so he said he didn't need a reason to help a friend's family. The king thanked him, and Mason didn't hesitate to say it was plunder when he asked what his skill was. The king's eyes widened in surprise. He was about to say something when a soldier rushed inside to report something. After the discussion, the king realized they really needed to borrow his strength, so he told Masam he had something to give him. A unique sword was given to him, a demon sword called a Gram. He couldn't believe such a rare weapon was in his hands. The king pulled an item out for their party. He gave the transference crystal linked to the king's crystal, which was used to sense mortal danger. They were amazed by its sparkling beauty, and later on they headed to the town. The place was oozing with a dark aura. Their party looked around to search for people, but they noticed the torn trees, slashed with some sharp claws. Chloe stopped them because her enhanced hearing sensed something. A loud scream was heard nearby, and when they followed it, they saw an orc holding an axe. Luna slid beside the woman to cast a protection spell while Chloe dashed forward to use her sharp claws. They checked up on the woman when it was defeated and asked where the others were. She couldn't utter a word in fear, but when she looked behind her, a bunch of unconscious elves were not too far from them. Chloe and Mason went to them to check their vital signs, but they were all deceased. Luna couldn't help but feel devastated to see her people suffer like this. Chloe patted her shoulder and told her she needed to endure this. She wiped her tears and angrily said she would never forgive those demons. Mason sighed and wondered what objectives the demons had. They jolted when they heard a growling sound from a silver panther behind them. It was alone, so Mason stepped in. He used his speed-enhancing skill and rushed toward the monster. He activated his plunder skill and stole a skill from it. He took the demon sword from the storage, and when he tried to draw the sword, he froze, realizing it had no blade. The panther managed to escape because he was too confused by the sword. The others noticed the sword and thought there might be a way to use it. He looked at his hand and saw the swift foot skill he got from the panther, which evolved into a gale force since he already had a swift foot. He was surprised something like this could happen, but with this, he could take the survivors and bodies to Randoria right away. While Chloe and Luna continued to search around, Masum used his skill to put the elves to a safer place. The two were amazed by his speed. Chloe headed on, using her sharp hearing and smell, but she sensed nobody nearby. They decided to press on a little further, and while they were walking, Luna called Chloe to thank her for joining their party because it reassured her to have her with them. The two continued searching, but they found nothing. Chloe somehow got bored and suggested sparring a little. Luna was surprised and said there was no way she could beat her, but Chloe said they could encounter many enemies stronger than them, so it would be better to train beforehand. Luna gets her point and eventually agrees to her idea. Meanwhile, a soldier was shaking in fear as he faced a demon. In a blink, the soldier was unalived. The woman chuckled and looked around the place. While she was at it, Mason was going at full speed to bring the survivor to safety. She was reunited with her family, and before he returned to his party, he thought of heading to the king to ask about the sword because he was completely unarmed. When he got there, he felt his heart pounding because the palace seemed to be quiet. The gatekeepers were nowhere to be seen, making him wonder what happened to them. As he searched, he froze when he heard a woman calling him the Plunder. The woman walked to him as if they were old friends and said she'd been dying to meet the plunderer all this time. He was confused and told the demon to stay back. He looked behind her and noticed a soldier bathing with blood, making him wince because he recognized them as the gatekeepers. He gritted his teeth as his sweat dripped from his face. He asked what she was doing there and if she was the one who took Lutz. She confusingly repeated the name, so Mason told her to tell him everything about the boy. She realized he meant the troublesome kid who crystallized. She said no, but there was something she would like to ask him, why he bothered to join the hero's party. Mason told her it was none of her business, but she kept provoking him, making him wonder why he was getting flustered by a demon's words. The woman suddenly laughed and mockingly said a plunderer like him wouldn't be useful to a party because he was an idiot. Her words pierced through his chest, but she wasn't done. Since her main target was nowhere near, she asked if she was with him because she had come all the way to their house, but the target wasn't there. Mason realized she was referring to Luna, so he told the demon he wouldn't let her lay a finger on Luna. He activated his plunder at her, which caught her off guard. However, nothing happened. The two stared at each other, just like with the red wolf. The demon couldn't hold her laughter and burst out laughing. She couldn't believe he didn't know how to use it properly. She sighed because their skill was wasted on him and wished she could just have it. Mason was dumbfounded at how this person knew all about him and his skill. The woman looked at him and said it was because his skill belonged to the demons. His eyes darkened in shock. His system seemed to shut down after hearing it from an actual demon. Going back to the forest, Luna requested a timeout because it would be impossible for her to defeat Chloe hand to hand. She kept crying in defeat but suddenly stood up, surprising Chloe. Luna asked what she could do to help them, so Chloe said she could help her scout since her senses couldn't detect enemies that were far away. With her magic, they could pinpoint their location, so she nodded. Chloe asked where magical power came from, and she replied by saying elves' magical power was stored in their hair, and that is why many men had long hair. She suddenly gasped after realizing she could also gather magic in her eyes to use for scouting. She quickly closed her eyes to try it out. She concentrated momentarily so Chloe kept silent and watched the air around her change. She remembered Chloe saying there was nobody nearby, but Luna was confused because she could sense a person behind the boulder. They quickly ran towards it, and when they got there and looked around it, they saw nobody. Luna would rather not consider it, but she thought they were being watched by someone who erased their presence. The two got worried about it, and when they realized Mason had been taking too long to return, they thought something happened in the palace. They quickly returned to the royal capital with a pounding heart, hoping Mason would be safe as they got there. When they arrived at the palace, they looked around, wondering why it felt so silent inside. When they spotted Mason unconscious on the ground, they worriedly rushed to him to wake him up. They checked his vital signs and were relieved he was still alive and only unconscious. Luna noticed the demon sword, and they were surprised because it looked different. The sword had finally revealed its blade, and it was emitting some dark aura. Meanwhile, the demon was flapping its wings earlier. She was whining because her arm was now broken, and she might get yelled at for it. She sighed harshly and remembered that Plundered was hiding something like that sword. The depressed demon sighed as she flapped her wings away, but she suddenly halted when she spotted a beastkin and her target. However, due to her sliced limb, she couldn't fight, so she retreated. On the other side, Mason was trapped inside a white room. It seemed empty at first, but as he looked around, he heard a girl's voice calling his name as if she was singing. She asked if it was strong, but he was confused about what she was saying. The shadow smiled and asked if the plunder was strong. He shrugged his shoulders and asked if she saw him. When it said yes, he asked who she was, making him sulk for a while because Mason had forgotten about her. She turned around, saying she lost her motivation. She sighed and told Mason she wanted to tell him that he still hadn't mastered his skill, but awakening the Gram was a step forward. Mason asked her how he could master the power he possessed, how it was connected to the demons, and many more. The shadow felt dizzy after being bombarded with many questions. He asked again what he should do about it, so she told him to do the opposite of what he had been doing all this time. She whirled around, waved goodbye, and left her more confused. When he finally gained consciousness and woke up, he jolted up from lying. Chloe rushed to him and asked how he was feeling, and if he still recognized her because he had been asleep for 3 days. Mason was shocked by what he heard. He paused to think for a moment, and suddenly the door opened. Luna gasped upon seeing him awake, and she couldn't help but run to him and hug him tightly. She was crying in relief because she thought she lost him. Mason looked at them and apologized for making him worry. When he remembered about the monsters in the capital, they explained to him they retreated. Luna said their forces suddenly pulled back, making them wonder why. Chloe figured that they may be trying to lure someone out. Mason asked who she thought they were luring out. The door opened again, and it was the king. He looked like he was having trouble breathing, so he assured them he was all right because his mana was still recovering. After a while, Masum brought up how he used his magic while gripping the sword handle, and then a giant black blade emerged. King Arkles was surprised, making Mason ask if there was a problem. When the king shook his head, Mason continued and said she managed to cut the demon's arm but left afterward after saying she would see him later. The king sighed and revealed that the demons might be targeting Mason. He pulled a book to show them the 3 great skills of the world written on it. There was a hero, a demon lord, and a true hero. That hero was described as possessing plunder skills. King Arkles explained that when a plunderer still exists, nobody could inherit it. A new owner of the skill could be chosen if the current owner perished. Mason couldn't believe he possessed the power of a true hero, a guy who was kicked out of the hero's party. Luna and Chloe told him to be confident because he had already become a hero when he helped the elves in Chloe's village. The king agreed and said he also believed in his capabilities as a true hero. He told Mason to be careful using his power because there was a possibility that the demons were targeting him to recruit or eliminate him. Either way, Mason would be facing demons who would be after his skill, so it would be best for him to avoid revealing his hand, and to do that, he must learn his skill's roots and activation conditions deeply. Luckily, Mason felt that he needed to learn his skill, so he told himself saying he couldn't do it wouldn't be his option. He knew they shouldn't underestimate and defeat the demons immediately. In a restaurant near the guild, the people had been worried about running out of money since the quests were suspended. They even knew about the king being attacked by demons, and a party with an elf and a fox drove them off, making them wonder what the hero's party had been doing all that time. They quickly left the place when they noticed the hero was just near them. Rondo kept silent, and Leaf noticed he was in a bad mood as he arrived. He sat beside him and asked how his party was going. When he said he had to hear about them, Leaf wondered if they fought, so he advised him to cherish his comrades. Rondo asked what he thought about the recent talks about demons. Leaf paused and asked if he had heard the rumor that someone might be guiding them among the people. He mentioned that kid they kicked out of the party, and said that kid had been tied to the demons, which shocked the hero. He thought Mason was helping the demon and might be reaching out to him. Rondo couldn't believe such a clumsy person could do that. Leaf told him to think carefully about his moves because he couldn't protect him. When they finished, he went out and came across his party members. Shyle called him and frustratingly asked where he had been, but he didn't reply and was staring blankly. They called him to wake him up, and they were confused when he spoke Mason's name. Rondo revealed he was targeting them, but the two wouldn't believe such guys could do something like that. Rondo ordered them, as their leader, not to meet Mason. The two had no power to break his order, so they just nodded. Miro asked what they would do now, and Rondo said they would be crushing Mason's newly built party to pieces. Speaking of them, they were inside the forest. Chloe wondered why the scent disappeared, and that person flew to the sky. Luna used her magic to search, but she had nothing. When she asked if they should head to the next door, Mason asked what it was. Luna explained that the neighboring country, Ikix, is the land of knowledge, and their library holds a vast collection of historical text. Chloe agreed because going back to basics and cramming in some knowledge would be a valid approach. However, Chloe wasn't good at studying. They were having trouble thinking how they could get there quickly. Mason removed his gloves as he thought of using body enhancement and swift foot to get to the stables, but he screamed in shock to see empty markings on his hands. The skills he obtained vanished. He was frustrated, but they were certain the demon didn't take it. And if that were the case, Mason knew that Shadow from the White Room must have taken it. He explained to them that only the skills he plundered disappeared, and he could still use plunder itself. Chloe nodded and said that explains why all his belongings were scattered all over the castle since he lost his storage skills. They thought about plundering a movement-oriented skill from a monster to use for their travel. Luna suggested trying something like teleportation, but there are no monsters with that skill unless it was an Enderman. Luna mentioned the body enhancement for him to pull a cart, but his stamina wasn't enhanced, so his tongue would probably drop and be dragged on the floor in exhaustion as they traveled. Luna raised his voice because he kept complaining about all their suggestions. Mason thought of using a skill that could make him fly, but the two frowned because he would be leaving them behind if he were to use that. They ran out of ideas, so they walked to Ikix, which would take about a day of walking. As they went on their journey, Mason asked Luna for Lutz's status, and she said he was calm at the moment, maybe because he knew they were coming to help him. Mason nodded and told her to let him know if anything changed. As they climbed up, they could hear some hissing sound like steam. Chloe told them there were many active volcanoes around them, so hot springs would be nearby. The princess's eyes glimmered in excitement, but that broke when Mason told her they were not going in spring. She sprinted to a nearby spring and excitedly poked the water, but as soon as she felt the burning water, she screamed in pain. Chloe told me that natural springs near volcanoes don't have comfortable temperatures. Luna was arguing with her when they felt something. She turned around to check the bubbling water. Her eyes widened when a creature emerged from the hot spring. Thus, a horse-half-fish was called a kelpie. The chapter ends at 10. Just as the dust settled and hope flickered in their eyes, a sinister splash echoed through the shadows. A kelpie emerged, its form twisted, dripping with malice. They'd come far, learned to trust each other's strength, but would it be enough? With Lutz fading fast and secrets unraveling like threads in a storm, their path grows darker. Who is the traitor aiding the demons? Can they survive what lies ahead, or is this the beginning of the end? Find out in the next thrilling episode. The answers lie just ahead, but only for those who dare to follow. Subscribe now to see the latest chapters and stories so exclusive you won't find them anywhere else. Drop a like if you're ready for more, and we'll see you in the next thrilling episode. Stay sharp, have a nice day.